I'm back. It's Farmer Ann. So that was the title that took a little while for me to get comfortable with. The farm needed a lot of repair and cleanup. We bought the house and we took over, we assumed the lease on the property, which had 9 more years to run. And we knew that it was not compliant. We had to do a lot to refurbish the farm. And by we, I mean my mom and yeah, my dad was along for the ride. My dad was not a farmer. He was not interested in the farm. He loved the house and he loved being with mom. But mom was really taking full charge of rehabilitating the farm and figuring out what to do with the food that we grew. So the first thing she solved was, well, she joined a bunch of associations and went to a bunch of meetings and started to figure out what you do with the stuff that we grew. We had 4 crops. We grew coffee, which everybody knows, Kona coffee, wildly popular, internationally famous. Avocados. The first, I don't know if it was the first year or the second year, I actually made signs and named it was the second year. It was 2014. So I made signs and named all of the avocado trees after Winnie the Pooh characters and had laminated signs stuck on all the trees so we could figure out which one was which. I don't know why that made sense, but it did to me at the time. So avocados, coffee, macadamia nut trees, which let me tell you, macadamia nuts are worth every dime you pay for them because the trees are incredibly messy. The nuts are incredibly hard to crack open and very rare that you get a whole one without some dings on them. And at least when you're doing them by hand in the little machine. It takes a machine. I mean, you have a levered machine, and I bought one of those just so we could have it to, open macadamia nuts. And then the 4th crop was cacao, which is the colloquial slang, I guess it's a word, for cacao trees, chocolate trees. And every time I say that to people, and mostly I think of the kids' vision, is they think of, oh, a chocolate tree. So it's this tree and there's like bars of chocolate hanging off of it. Far from it. Chocolate takes a lot of work, and I'll talk more about that later. But the farm also had a lot of one-off trees. There were a lot of the people that lived there before us thought it was a great idea to have one of this and 2 of those and a bunch of those other things. And I think right from the beginning, Mom and I had more of a vision of a Tuscany vineyard with nice rows or French orchard with the trees, and we're in Washington State, and apple trees and nice neat rows and pruned and organized. And the people before us worked full-time jobs and nurtured the farm as they could in between those jobs. So I think that we had more of a long-term goal of making agricultural crops the center of the activity on this farm rather than just living on a farm. So Mom worked very hard. She solved the coffee problem. She found a coffee manager who his livelihood was going to other people's coffee farms and caring for the trees and harvesting the coffee beans. And he retained a portion of the proceeds from harvesting the coffee beans. And it's a way of incentivizing that, he did. And he did an amazing job. And I'll tell you more about in that progression. And Mom then found a buyer for the avocados. Evidently, we grew good avocados. We had 14 trees, and the avocados were large and healthy and pest-free. And our picker, who had been the picker before for our predecessor owners, stayed on and worked with us for several years. So yeah, farm life. It was, and I was in and out. I spent all of May and all of December there. In May, I was with my parents, and in December, I had the farm all to myself, and they would come back and do all of the holiday activities with the rest of the family that lives here in Washington State. So yeah, it was quite an adventure those first few years. The last thing that oh, and macadamia nuts. Macadamia nuts, hard to pick. You pick them up off the ground, hard to find pickers. But I recall Mom being very celebratory the third or fourth year that we were on the farm with a really great harvest and a whole bunch of macadamia nuts. And she sent me some pictures. So that was exciting. But the last remaining to be handled was the most difficult, which was the chocolate orchard, the cacao, the cocoa orchard. And tune in next time, and I'll tell you what we found there and how we brought it back to functionality.